Hello guys, welcome to another segment of Mo and
Ali
in the morning. Okay, so today's topic of discussion is boundaries within the movies The Kite and Omar. So we're going to be discussing the theme of boundaries within the two movies. Alright, so our next guest here is we have Akil. He took the class before, he has a little knowledge and background about the movies we're discussing today. So how does it feel to be discussing Arabic cinema again?
Good. After I took the class with Professor May, you start to realize the way certain things are shot actually have a more substantial meaning than what you first see it. It offers you a different perspective of how you view cinema.
So I have a question for you regarding the movie Omar. How does boundaries exist throughout the movie?
The one that comes to mind right away is the easiest boundary within the emotional boundaries that Omar faces throughout the movie.
Yeah.
The biggest hurdle for him wasn't the wall that he crossed, but it was the emotional encounters that he faced throughout the movie.
تحبيني تحب حدا تاني احكي لي
قصدك براد بيت.
I noticed a lot in the movie that the relationship between Omar and Nadia was very secretive, and
So that's a religious boundary.
the religious boundary. Yeah.
Oh yeah. In the context of Omar being in a setting of the Palestinian occupation, you see that the boundary between him and Nadia also is not so much I think the easiest and the smallest boundary is actually the wall built between them. It's actually, like you mentioned, the cultural barriers and the fact that it's residing in a place of already distrust. It's a serious setting. It's not a setting prone to love and romance. It's a setting it's a political movement, right? His character is a leader of a political movement, so you got to take that into consideration as one of the boundaries restricting his relationship beyond the cultural and the physical boundaries of the wall.
Because the wall is just a physical boundary that represents the political boundary.
Exactly. No, I agreed. So that one's a tough one too, because that boundaries is what more or less Ahmad's trying to break. He's fighting for a movement, insofar as he can achieve the Palestinian independence. So that one I think is the one that he already notices. It's the boundary that Ahmad is seeking to break himself. We talk about, we mentioned the cultural boundaries and the religious boundaries, but that's the one that he actually he puts on his vision board that he wants to break. So that one's obviously very successful as well. When you see the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, you always see on the headlines a very brutal, vicious, and it is. I mean, if you see the ending of the movie and throughout the time you see this level of violence. But like you mentioned, it also puts a name to these people. And it humanizes the conflict, it makes it more real, and
It kind of breaks a cultural boundary between the Israelis and the Palestinians, as they were both viewed as people who couldn't necessarily relate to each other. I feel like when he was in Agent Rum's office, he kind of calmed down when he realized he was talking to his wife on the phone and they were having family issues at home.
היי מותק. לא, אני לא יכול. לא יכול. אני באמצע הגדה. מה את רוצה שאני אעשה? מה, אני ספיידרמן? אני אראה מה אני יכול לעשות, אוקיי? אבל אז את צריכה...
I think Hania Wasan, which is
the director.
director of the movie, I think he did that purposely. He showed that there's common ground. Despite the level of differences for these two people, there's this level of humanity that still exists, despite the struggle, despite the circumstances,
Despite the cultural boundaries.
and more than just culture, the political boundaries, the history that goes along with this movie and this conflict.
So we have Amira Rohe here to discuss the theme of boundaries within the movie The Kite. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
First off, can you give us a little summary of The Kite?
The Kite is a movie about a girl who's in the Druze community in Lebanon, and she has to get married to a a guy living in Israel.
Across the border.
Yeah, across the border between the two countries. And because of the political situation between the two countries, it's like really emphasized how she has to actually cross the border between the two countries. And that's pretty much what the movie revolves around, is her getting married and the struggles she has to go through to leave her family. And then added to the plot is that she falls in love with a Lebanese guy who's working for the Israeli army. She's in love with him and he's in love with her, but they can't really have the relationship that they want to have for obvious reasons because of, like I mentioned, the political situation between the two countries. Yeah, I think physical boundaries are really important in the movie because, like I mentioned, she has to actually cross the distance, the actual boundary
So the
itself.
border. So we can relate the physical boundaries to the physical boundaries in Omar, where he has to cross over the wall, and that's overly dramatized as well. And it's like you said, it's overemphasized. They film the entire walk with no music. It's just pure silence.
The sound of her walking, you just hear like her footsteps and the wind, and her dress gets caught in the barbed wires. I think another boundary that the main character Lamia experiences is, like I mentioned, how she falls in love with Yusuf, which is the Israeli soldier. She can't have a relationship with him, but not only because of culture, it's also more so like a political issue that she can't have a relationship with him because at the end of the day, they both technically have the same culture because they're both Lebanese, but he works for the Israeli army. Or I would say it's more a political issue that she's from Lebanon, and clearly the situation between both countries is, it's always been a conflict. So for obvious reasons, she can't be with him, he can't be with her. And it's even emphasized in the movie because the other Israeli soldier who works with Yusuf tells him, when he sees him spying on Lamia with his binoculars, he tells him, like, forget her, like you're chasing something you'll never get. Because other people in their surroundings also acknowledge the fact that although there's nothing really wrong with them being together, because of the overall picture, they can't. And she's the one leaving her family behind. She's the one making that sacrifice when he's living the same life with his family still, and just basically the only thing changing in his life, I'm talking about the groom, is like his wife is gonna enter.
And also what I noticed is it has a toll on the way someone acts. So she'd feel uncomfortable even interacting with a person of another gender.
I feel like although boundaries is what got Lamia in the position that she was in terms of having to marry that guy who lives in Israel, she also in a way like overcame those boundaries by deciding to go back, no matter the like cultural consequences and how bad that would make her look.
So boundaries aren't necessarily something that you can't break through. And at the same time, in the movie, she still doesn't get what she wants. Although she goes back to her hometown, she's still fantasizing about being with Yusuf, even though it's known that it's never going to happen. The dream she had, the interaction, it's what she wants, but because of the cultural, religious,
Political.
and even the physical boundaries, something that can't manifest itself in their life.
شو بدك؟
بدي إياك تكون معي. بدي تبطل تخاف. أنا بطلت خاف من زمان، لأن عارفة رح موت، أو يمكن هلأ أنا ميتة. بدي فيك تزرعي القميص هيك. بدي هيدي النجمة. بدي تشلح الصباط، خصوصا صباطك.